Well, good evening, race fans, and welcome back to another week of racing, starting with F1 here at the Invictus Racing League channel. My name is Webbo, and here back into the rhythm of everything. My apologies for being missing for a few weeks due to work commitments, but I am back. I've been trying to keep up with developments, but there's none better, of course, to keep me apprised of what's been going down here in F1 than my co-commentator and stalwart of the championship and Invictus in general as well. It's JP back with us in the comms box in the second seat. Hey JP.
Evening, Weather. Nice to have you back. How are you feeling?
Yeah, doing well and looking forward to a fun race here tonight. I'm hoping to see a new winner, perhaps, because I gather Ghost has been dominating at this point. I think it's 5 wins from 6 races so far. This is round 7. I wonder who can break his stranglehold currently. What we do know, JP, is that Suzuka, where we're heading to go racing next, it's very well known as being a humbler of overconfident drivers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've got to be very careful around Japan. It's a lovely circuit to drive. In fact, it's incredible to drive because it's one of those old school circuits. However, because of that, you've got very little room to make any mistake, and the curbs you just don't want to touch. If you get too confident with the curbs in the wrong places, you're in for a bit of a bad day.
Absolutely. It's, as you say, old school narrow circuit, punishing on drivers if they lose their attention slightly. Good evening to Ghost and Smoke, who are here. Smoke is already sending out the smoke signals for help for him tonight. He's planning to spin multiple times, I think. Just lowering expectations possibly from Smoke. And hello to Simon Palmer, who also joins us. Do make sure that if you're stopping to watch the race and the qualifying with us beforehand, that you let us know who you're here to support. Say good evening to us, ask any questions, or tell us what we are missing on the screen if you see something that we're not talking about. But JP, I know about Ghost's domination, but what else has been going on in my absence, and where do we see ourselves at the moment in terms of the F1 standings?
Well, so you've been up for 3 weeks, Bobo, and behind Ghost, 6 different podium places for drivers. We have not had the same driver on the podium other than Ghost for the last 3 rounds. Obviously in Emilia-Romagna, being Imola, it was the turn of Max, who had a fantastic race getting second, Livermore in third in that one. Britain, it was Stefan again, battling so hard with Ghost, but couldn't quite. A bit like Spain, just couldn't quite get the job done when it mattered most. With Delange getting a podium after retiring at Imola,
Wow.
And then Singapore, we had Livermore, Ghost's closest competition, retire from the race. But Speed Queen suddenly came good for the first time this season, really, in terms of her pace, pushing Ghost again. Ridiculously good last lap battle between the pair. Unfortunately, Speed Queen did spin out eventually after Ghost managed to get the move done on her. But it was then ARL who took his first podium of the season as well in 3rd place. So lots to do, but Ghost, a 38-point advantage going into Suzuka. I mean, which means he's got 2 rounds in his pocket, so he should be feeling quite relaxed heading into Japan.
Well, I hope he hasn't relaxed too much, but absolutely sounds like some thrilling escapades from the drivers. We see that customary stepped pit lane here for the pit apron for the cars. I don't think the drivers really experience any sort of feeling on that at all. We've already got cars coming out of the pits. Drivers keen to get a move on. Looks like an overcast day on the circuit. I haven't seen any reports of rain. Oh yes, I have. Ivan Beloff tells me it's fully dry, and thank you to him for that one, and also thank you to Smoke, who drops in a weather forecast straight away as well. Ghost is ready to work hard, he says. Pace is very close in time trial between the drivers, and it looks like it's ARL out there on track first of all, as we're fairly used to seeing. I have a slight problem with my display at the moment. I can't select. There we go. I can change camera. Good. Excellent. So we'll just watch ARL getting himself warmed up now, JP. Any predictions for this one? Simon Palmer says a 29.2 for pole. But I don't know if you've got any predictions as to who you think will be on top.
I think I'll avoid the predictions bucket. You know what happens, we predict something and it goes completely the other direction. But yeah, I mean, it should be quite a close qualifying in terms of especially the mid pack, just whether anyone can stop Ghost, because track position here very much king. Because in reality, you're only going to really use the ERS heavily outer spoon to get your run up to 130R, and really out with a hairpin anything tight just to get the engine up and going. So it's going to be an interesting one, that's for certain.
Round 130R goes ARL right now, getting the car, still trying to warm the car up on the head into the Casio Triangle, the final chicane. And JP, if you'll do the honours, we'll join ARL on board with the first flying lap here in qualifying.
Absolutely, 5.8 kilometres of Japanese twisting road, 18 corners, 10 to the right, 8 to the left, and here's the first of the right-handers, turn the first corner, almost flat through it, then hammering down the gears to 4th for the second part, into the snake, 3, keep it in 6th, use a little bit of curb on the first one, stay away from almost every other curb round here, it will spin you out, and you see just how tricking between 4th and 6th, just to get the car right through the Dunlop curb. Again, a touch of curb, got to be careful for that very big corner to spin out on. The Degners, touch of brake down to 6th for the first, and then down to 4th, 3rd for ARL for the second, using the curb on the exits. Up towards the hairpin 10, and then 11 is the hairpin all the way down to 2nd gear. Possibly short shift on the exit, not for ARL, he'll use all the revs. As we head through 200R at turn 12, and down to the infamous spoon curve. Again, another one you do not want to go wide on in this case, because of the AstroTurf on the outside. Use the curve by all means, but not the green stuff. It just tightens on the exit, but you can get the throttle on quite early. Down the back stretch we go to finish sector 2. And up to 130R. This is a ride and a half. Absolutely flat to the boards as you head down toward the Casio Triangle. Brake at just about 100, just after. Down to 2nd. Again, use a touch of curb. It will branch out if used too much. Through turn 18, flat out. Coming up to the line, it is a 130.2 to start us off.
A handy initial lap. The Living Wall, who has got it to 129.5, betters ARL by 0.7 of a second. Do we see any advance on that? Luke Bailey goes for 130.0, 130 flat as Mr. Steen approaches the Casio Triangle himself. You can see the, I think what could have been the very first Ferris wheel on a Formula 1 circuit at least. There with the on the exit of the final corner. Mr. Steen logs a 130.5, but not before Delange, the Alfa Romeo pairing, on the top of the timing beams by 0.03 of a second at 129.535. Agonisingly close to Simon Palmer's prediction already. JP, are you seeing times that are a little bit lower than perhaps we would imagine for early bankers here?
I think these guys don't really do bankers. I mean, Ghost put 142. I think these guys just go flat out all the time, because the problem is that it's very good in the lower leagues to get a banker time, because you could expect more mistakes potentially as you go down the tiers. But in this one, not many mistakes get made. It's in the 31.4 in the Ferrari. Yeah, not many mistakes get made, so these guys will be on it from lap 1. If they got the temperature. Stefan goes second and splits the Alfa Romeos.
It does indeed. That was a very, very small window to fit the car in, and he managed to do it by 100th of a second. Sorry, 1,000th of a second. He beat Living Wall. Simply 90 about to finish the lap. Ghost was perhaps the exception, doing an obvious banker lap, unless he made a mistake on his initial plan, and that's very much plan B. Simply 90 slots into 8th. How about Ghost though? Where is he? He is currently heading down the back stretch towards 130R. Now, if you're racing on a wheel here, JP, it starts to rattle something chronic down this straight. It is a very, very bumpy straight. The T-bar camera does kind of smoothen it out somewhat for spectators, but actually in the car it's quite a traumatic run. You can't really take your hand off the wheel as Ghost goes fourth for 29.9 and gets his Alpine up there into the third row. Who else do we see on a lap? Tirac, perhaps. No, he's not on a lap. Go ahead, JP.
So I think Ghost potentially not necessarily doing a banker or a mistake. I think potentially, I mean, it looks quite overcast at the moment, which means temperature's not quite as high. So I wonder if Ghost has decided to go for an out lap, a warm up, an extra warm up lap, and then go for the tyres, because tyre temperature in this game is critical. But that does mean that Ghost will have more wear on the tyre for his lap. But if the temperatures are better, it might negate some of that.
Interesting insight. We've had a prediction here from Konstantinos, who says Delange will be the race winner. We're looking for pole position owners' predictions at the moment, Konstantinos, but we'll try and remember that. As Simon Palmer says, no, they're good laps, but they won't beat 29.2. And he also agrees that his placey, his gaming rig, shakes like mad around this track. It is very, very bumpy. But you're right, the clouds are very, very overcast on the sky. Barely a hint of blue anywhere. Tirac just climbing through the first sector. And he's just joined us, JP, as a full-time driver, you were telling me.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of new full-time drivers. We've got Smoke in the Ferrari. He's now paired up with Ivan. Unfortunately, Max, due to just time constraints and commitments, unable to continue his duty in the Ferrari. So unfortunately, he's had to take a step back as a reserve. So Smoke comes in, and Tirac for the Alpha Tauri team is the new teammate for ARL. We also have obviously Simply, who is currently still a reserve in this league. But he's gone with the Red Bull, so he didn't score any team points, just drivers. But the interesting thing, obviously, we've got drivers coming out for their out laps. Luke Bailey, I think, just about to start his, as is I think ARL just finished one with a 1:30.203.
Okay, so P8 for him. Where's Luke Bailey at the moment? Currently in the Mercedes, going into turn 2 and climbing up the hill. Liftboot says hello and is calling an alternate strategy is good. I'm assuming that means medium soft would be the alternate. And Simon Palmer says that the medium hard, but play your cards right, and on a single, you've got a 1 lap window, you can make a different strategy work. Well, he's being very mysterious here. JP, any ideas what he's on about?
So what he's on about is obviously there's 2 real strategies you can use in the 50% races on this game, which is you have to be medium and hard tyres. There's no doubt about it, because the softs just wear too much. But it's what order, because obviously everyone can choose what their starting tyre is, so it just depends what order you want to use them. And you can have various different plans in place. I mean, the mediums are good if you get like an early safety car. It could be good just to get you up the road a little bit before your pit stops. But ultimately, if you start then on the hards, you're looking either for a later safety car to help you out, or you're just looking for the pace the mediums. As long as you don't lose too much time on them to begin with, you're looking to use to optimise the pace of the mediums. ARL puts in a stunning time to go second.
Impressive stuff from ARL. Delange is on a lap at the moment as well. Just managed to miss his first sector, but Luke Bailey's lap was looking a little bit too scrappy to stay with on stream. Looked like he was 3.5 tenths over into sector 2, as Delange heading around the 200R approach to Spoon Curve, which is really 2 curves, 2 braking events pretty much. Spoon 1 and Spoon 2 we now go into, avoiding the inside curb there from Delange. Slightly unusual line. You want to get on that power as early as possible down the backstretch here. He's obviously looking for the smoothest run down this section, and he is 1/4 of a second faster, throwing the car through 130R, which is flat out, of course, but the minute you get low grip conditions, you do have to have a little confidence lift sometimes. Here we go then for Livingwall takes pole on a 29.3 as Delange claims it back again on a 29.294. That is the definition of close between our Alfa Romeo drivers. They are on the front row together. It's looking very impressive so far, JP.
Yeah, Simply has been disqualified from the session. They're driving the wrong way. I think the game is overly harsh. Oh, that's an Alpine off the road. In fact, that's Ghost that has gone off the road in the snake section. Just for Dunlop. Yeah, the game overly harsh when you spin. If you're not just donutting straight away, the game pretty much disqualifies you for just going 3 yards the wrong direction to get your car back on. So that's a bit unlucky for Simply. So a hard race for him in store because it's not an easy track to pass at. Looking
Tirac P6. Stefan, I was just watching.
Stefan, yeah, Stefan 0.17 by the looks of it, up at Sector 2. Sector 3, not really a lot, but you can gain a lot of time for this Casio triangle if you get the line right.
That was greedy across the apexes from Stefan. I hope that he's got the car bounced back down onto the adhesion on the circuit and goes pole, a provisional pole of 29.193. That was a strong final sector, JP.
Yeah, nearly 2/10 gained in that final sector. That's why I say if you can be greedy enough and the car will take it.
Big Queen gets 7th there, 29.666, as Ghost, I think, is just cruising on this lap. He's going to try and start a new lap now, I believe, as he comes down at the start-finish straight. Let's watch on board Ghost, because if he's trying to keep this run alive of 4 successive race wins, 5 in total out of the 6 races we've had so far, he's got some work to do from P9.
Yeah, and he's not been off the podium yet this season, so you want to keep that one alive. However, Ghost, it's an interesting fact you say from P9.
Oh, and there he goes again. There he goes again. Just snatched the outside wheel off the circuit, or at least off the racing line, coming out of Dunlop.
On the curb.
And unfortunately, I think it was a very similar place, certainly the same sector that he made the mistake in the previous lap.
Yeah, he made a similar mistake in just a corner before, but on that occasion, as we've seen multiple times around the Dunlop curve, you get one wheel on either curb and you've got a high chance of going round. The interesting thing about Ghost though, is that in Imola, he won that race from 13th on the grid. Yep. So he's done it before, but I think Imola is slightly easier to overtake around.
Yeah, it's a small amount easier. It's hardly a simple track, but yeah, Luke Bailey currently about to get his next lap in. P11, slightly lower than he's used to being here in the Mercedes. What about that second sector? Quarter of a second faster, and the times are very, very tight. A quarter of a second, JP, could see him leapfrog all the way up to the top 8, potentially, although that entry into Casio Triangle looked a little bit rough, and it was too rough for him. He's heading into the pits. Have we got a driver actually on a hot lap at the moment? I don't think we have. Everybody waiting for the final 3.5 minutes of this session. I'll just go back into the live chat. Let's see what's been going on. Simon Palmer says, that's it. Cut it off there. That is a 29.2. Well, technically we have a 29.193 from Stefan, but we'll round it up for the sake of Simon Palmer's prediction. I think a Ferrari might be heading his way out the pits. Is that Ivan? It is.
Burmeister about to go onto a flying lap.
Oh, good stuff.
Just going to the Casio triangle.
That's right with Burr then. Haven't given him any screen time yet, on my screen at least. I know you've been putting in a lot of laps, I'm sure, for practice, JP, but what effect does the low-hanging sunlight cause for the drivers here? Particularly, I saw into Degner was a particular problem for the drivers.
I mean, quite the opposite. I've not really done any practice so far. that only comes on a Tuesday night, maybe for about 15 minutes.
Okay.
But I mean, in terms of the sunlight on this game, I mean, it's an annoyance, but in reality, it doesn't really affect it. It's you can kind of like see past it. You can see well enough, especially as most of the drivers will be using the normal camera that's on top of the engine cover on the airbox. So yeah, in reality it doesn't really make too much difference as long as you can put up with a little bit of glare every now and again. The driver should be fine with it.
Outlaps beginning for the top 6 in turn. It looks like it'd be Delange last in turn. So we'll try and figure out what they're up to. Burmeister about to cross the second sector timing beam here. And he is nearly 4/10 to the good, which would put him on the door of a place promotion or two. Let's see what his final sector looks like relative to the drivers in front of him. Looks relatively tidy here, but a little snap of oversteer should be curtains for this lap, I'm afraid, for Burmeister. No time to rescue the lap or start a new one. That is a P8 for Burmeister at most, I should say. Ivan Beloff about to...
Amazing. I was going to say, amazingly, that was a big snap of oversteer, and he still managed to gain another couple of tenths. So that lap could have been in like a 29.4, 29.3 region, because it didn't look like a big moment, but that does cost you a
Ivan
lot of
Beloff
momentum.
round and has taken the front off his car. His car has even gone translucent. We can see the driver inside the car. That's a yellow flag in the exit of turn 2, entry turn 3. But the rest of the drivers will be pushing hard. ARL seems to still be weaving here on his hot lap. So let's see what Living Wall can do. Now he's slow at this stage. What is going on? They're just getting the cars warmed up, aren't they?
So what the game does, Webbo, is once they hit sector 3 on their outlap, it takes the outlap off. So these guys just starting their final flying laps.
Interesting. So Delange is definitely on a hot lap now and trying to wrest that P1 off Stefan's hands.
Have you seen his interesting helmet that he's been using recently?
This is not the first time a driver on a different league I was commentating last night was in this one as well. But he is 7/100th to the good through sector 1.
He's going to have his own movie called Finding Delange, I think. As he heads through 200 up and up towards Spoon. Now, who's he got in front of him? That looks like Mr. Steen, and I would assume either Reshka or Ghost. It's one of the Alpines, but I don't think they should get in the way as we head up towards 130 yard. Yellow in sector 1, that looks to be cleared pretty quickly. And Delange, 1.13 to the good. Can he take any time out of the Casio triangle? Right now, he's on for pole position. He needs to get this clean, does get it clean. Keeps it to the right hand side. Ready DRS across the lines at 29.123 and provisional pole position.
Brilliant stuff. But Stefan is going faster by 5/100th of a second through sector 1.
He's down by 3
now he's down
after sector 2. But bear in mind, Stefan is very good through this Casio triangle. He does take a lot of time, lot of curb used.
Yeah. Got
Again,
great performance out of the car. Hangs the car low. You saw the car getting really loose on Delange through Spoon. Stefan didn't do it, no. Stays second. What about Living Wall? Can he get that front row for Alfa Romeo?
He's already at 1.5. ARL, I think he's had a mistake on his lap, which is probably the yellow in sector 1.
Tirac goes faster up to P9, and I think that is going to be our order. It looks like Ghost is going to be up into 4th. He did get a good lap in towards the end of the session. Unfortunately, we're watching other drivers, but a clear 29.1 from Delange. That was a very, very smart time. Stefan also dipped underneath the 29.2 mark to get second place. We've got a race on our hands, JP.
Yes, and Ghost has a bit of work to do. I mean, I know he's 4th, but look at the drivers in front of him. This is not going to be an easy race, especially if Stefan can get past Delange early doors. You get the feeling Stefan's race pace this season has been very, very good, and he might pull away, but it's all about the start and the track position into turn 1 as you grid for the IRL PlayStation Tier 1 F1. For the Japanese Grand Prix is Delange and Stefan. Row 2 is Living Wall and Ghost. Row 3, Speed Queen and ARL. Row 4 is Ivan and Reshka. Row 5, Tirac and Luke Bailey. Row 6 is Burmeister and Smoke. Row 7 is Mr. Steen, and Simply will start at the back of the pack after being disqualified by the game.
But 9/10 of a second separating the 13 drivers who qualified. That is one of the closest fields I've had the pleasure of commentating over. Tremendous stuff here from the F1 boys. We will be diving fairly quickly into the race, so bear with us as we try and sort out our camera angles and menu screens and everything. Without the benefit of a formation lap, it's a little bit tricky for us to get everything up and running, but hopefully you'll bear with us on that. we will have a customary pause here for predictions to come in. So drop in your podium predictions, if you will. Choose 3 drivers. Will Ghost maintain his 4-race winning streak, or will somebody else finally get onto that top step? What about Delange? He seems to have the pace tonight in qualifying. Can he translate that into the race? We wait to see. I think it'll be a strong race from Alfa Romeo tonight. They seem to pair speed in qualifying with consistency in the race, JP.
Yeah, we have to think about the Constructors title as well. Alpine now leading the way in the Constructors by 8 points to the Alfa Romeos. As the Alphas had a very good start, but a couple of DNFs for them really hurt them in recent races. So 8 points between those two. So Alfa Romeo do need a good race to get back on track in terms of that championship. And we are still without a formation lap, Webbo. Just
thank you.
So we're going straight into the race as per previous races.
Yeah, we also have had to turn off Part Fermé, I believe, due to
I don't tend to like to mention that because it's one of those rules where it's necessary because of the bug, but it's annoying because it allows drivers to change setups, which I feel is not the right thing. I think everyone should kind of like stick to their own setups, but you know, if everyone can do it, it's all the same, isn't it?
No, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's just a problem we have to live with the game mechanics as they currently stand. I haven't seen any good predictions yet. I'm seeing people pitching themselves to drive in F1. So if you think you've got what it takes, follow the links on the channel to the website and see about joining. I can't really comment as to whether we are actively recruiting or not, but stick on the social channels at InvictusRL. You can follow me on Twitter at WebboRed5 as well if you want to. Daryl is backing the Alfa Romeo guys, and we're about to get underway. The 5 lights are on. The Delange leads us away from the race, and it's lights out and go, 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 as the Alfa Romeo seemingly getting a good bite down initially, although Stefan regaining that second place. Ghost getting alongside, but not getting too greedy. Is he? No, he dives down the inside into turn 2 and claims that 3rd position on the grid. ARL fighting with Speed Queen and rubbing wheels on the way into turn 3, but it is Delange, Stefan, Ghost, Living Wall, Speed Queen, ARL, the top 6. I don't know what you've seen from further back, JP.
Many people making moves. Burmeister up 2 places into 9th. Good, nice, clean getaway actually for turn 1 at Suzuka. Normally get a little bit of rubbing and a bit of people going wide, but Oreshka makes a move on ARL now. He's up into 6th place. And this first lap crucial for the track position because everyone's bunched up and everyone will have a concertina effect where moves can be made. But as the laps go on for the next couple, that will start to spread and chances will become less likely.
Reschke and Burmeister with the best advancements through the first half of a lap, gaining 2 places only. Again, underlining the quality of the field is the cleanliness of the start. I know that the stewards have actually given out praise, which I've never seen before in the weeks I've been missing, as to good behaviour on track as the cars go through towards our... towards 130R for the leaders, but Mr. Steen struggling and losing 5 seconds plus.
Big crash. Ivan Belov, 130R.
Wow, okay, Ivan, what's going on? Very uncharacteristic. I wonder if he was side by side with another driver. He was so far back that Mr. Steen has always overtaken him, as now Ghost is looking at the inside before the DRS is enabled, trying to steal a march here. He gets that inside line. He's got great grip on the inside, and he's alongside the Haas of Stefan and makes the move stick. Tremendous work. I suspect some ERS deployment came into play there, JP, but he's made 2 moves into turn 2 and they both worked in the first 2 laps.
Yeah, Ivan obviously front wing damage, meaning he's had to go on the hard tyres after just lap 1, so I fear another pit stop and a safety car required for the Ferrari driver. Didn't quite see what happened to him, but heavy impact. Lucky to only get away with front wing damages. Reschke all over the back of Speed Queen, who came 2nd last week at Singapore, so she's having to look behind a bit more. And Ghost, it's interesting that he managed to use using that little bit of ERS early to get that track position, because normally He's the king of saving that ERS for later on in the race.
Well, trying to steal a march on his rivals. We can check out his his ERS deployment, if you would, JP. It wouldn't surprise me if he was able to make those moves a bit better, but he did have tons more grip going into turn 2 than his rivals. Reshka coming up behind Speed Queen, who is the lead most hard tyre runner at this early stage. Everybody else in the top 7 on medium tyres. Then comes Burmeister. It's very interesting to see the wily old foxes of Burmeister and Speed Queen both starting on the hard tyres here, JP. I think they know something the other drivers perhaps don't.
No, I think this is what the game is very much all about now. Is about what tyre do you want to start on, because it's quite an even mix between hard and medium runners. Obviously, Ivan is out of sync with everything because he's already made a pit stop. But obviously Speed Queen and Burmeister looking to go a little bit longer and thinking that an overcut is possible, because round here, because it's so hard to overtake, you might be able to just about get away with your slightly colder tyres initially, especially for that S section, because as long as you plant the car in the middle of the circuit, it's very hard for someone to get past. So maybe that's what they're thinking, is they're looking for the overcut, which is very much doable in this year's game. And looking to then defend position afterwards whilst they get the mediums up to temperature.
Absolutely, the drivers will be awake to the possibility of using a safety car developing on track, or a VSC, that narrow circuit with that punishing Armco barriers and gravel traps can of course be the undoing of several drivers' race days. Reshka closes within 3/10, getting the slipstream coming down the backstretch and just about getting the car braked down to sufficient speed into the Casio triangle. The car sparking, bottoming out as he had to take slightly avoiding action behind Speed Queen. Here he goes now with, I think, the benefit of DRS and easy pass now after doing all the work required to use that DRS in the first place, and completes the move up to P5. Speed Queen slipping back, but only to P6 on the hard tyres. Will be playing the waiting game now, waiting for her tyres to be in a better shape than the 4 cars in front of it. It's lap 4. Delange leads Ghost by only 0.4 of a second from Stefan Livingwall. We ride with Reshka, then comes Speed Queen, ARL, Burmeister, Tyrrell and Luke Bailey, your top 10. But the field pretty close together, with the exception of Ivan Belov, who has made his first pit stop.
Yes, a Speed Queen, that move from Reshka, very nicely done. With the help, as Simply 90 gets a 3-second time penalty already for track infringements. Yeah,
won't be the first one of those we'll see tonight, I'm sure.
Oh, well, no. You could just tell Speed Queen just a little bit of wheel spin out with the Casio triangle on those hard tyres, still trying to possibly. I'd be surprised if they're not up to temperature, but maybe they're just coming into the window now, where they're going to be okay. But you just tell the traction difference, and you could tell Speed Queen wasn't going to defend that. She just stayed to the left hand side and just almost waved at him as he went past. But Ghost now in a position with DRS, with Stefan behind. We're going to have the top 4 and a bit of a DRS drain down the main straight, but Delange is going to have to be looking in his mirrors here.
Delange pressing the button. You can see the battery deployment visually as I was riding on board with Ghost. Looks like Stefan looking in his mirrors a little bit from Livingwall. The top 4 make that the top. Yes, definitely the top 4 very much together here. Then we've got Reshka leading a pack all the way down to 10th with a small gap to Smoke. And then Simply 90, Mr. Steen and Ivan Belov all outside of the DRS zone. But the top 4, Delange, Ghost, Stefan and Livingwall having a very, very good run at this early stage.
Yeah, also we have to remember Smoke down in 11th is and Tirak, both from the F2 tier to begin with in this season. I'm not quite sure the ruling on it, whether they are now full-time F1 and F2.
Was that ARL off the circuit? He certainly slipped back behind Burmeister and his teammate Tirak. ARL with a possible mistake through the Degners, I fancy there.
Yeah, he's probably just run. I didn't quite see it, but if he has gone off the Degners, it's probably just a little run wide, either through Degner 1 or Degner 2. And it just means you can't get on the throttle as much as you'd like to, because otherwise you're going to be spearing back across the track. Remember, no traction control or ABS this season in F1.
Yeah.
Making it very, very tricky for the drivers if they do make that one little mistake. But Ghost It's 3/10 now coming out of the Casio Triangle.
And leaning on those tyres through the second apex of the Casio Triangle as well. This is his best chance yet, JP.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's going to be full beans on the DRS. The ERS round the outside, not quite going to work. We'll look for a switch into 2. Not quite possible. Delange does well to hold it in the middle of the circuit between 1 and 2 in the first corner, through the snake once again. And you get the feeling that that's the only place Ghost is really going to get past this Alfa Romeo, is into turn 1. And even then, it's looking difficult.
Yeah, I fancy he's going to try and spend the race and make this a 2-horse race. I think that's usually his MO here, rather than taking too many risky moves and having to watch his mirrors. I think he needs to concentrate on applying pressure, yes, but perhaps not too much. Although I think if an opportunity presents itself, JP, you've got to take it around this circuit. You can't just wait for the next DRS zone, because there's no guarantees.
No, but you do have to be careful where you make that move, because I think if you do it around Spoon and don't get away enough down to 130R, you are very susceptible to being re-overtaken. It's a bit of a weird concept, because the DRS detection point for the DRS right here is just before the Casio Triangle chicane. So if you're clever enough, if you can get the car positioned correctly, you can look for a switchback out to the Casio Triangle to get better traction and then use the DRS. But if you overtake on entry, you risk losing the DRS down the main straight.
Absolutely, 0.4 of a second is around where the gap is hovering. That's almost the invisible dirty air wall pushing Ghost backwards as he tries to. Now there was a gap there into turn 2 that wasn't there the lap prior. Delange feeling like he could take a much wider entry to turn 2. That time round he wasn't quite as much under threat as he had been. Looks like Livingwall very, very close to the back of Stefan as well, and trying to pile the pressure on. At risk here of getting that little bit too close, JP, though. You get unsighted from what's going on ahead of you on track.
You do, and quite rightly said about the dirty LC, not so much as a bad effect anymore as it used to be, but still there. And yeah, Ghost he's almost there. He's so close to it, but just can't quite get there. But you get the sense at some point, does Ghost actually sit down and go, actually, let's work with Delange a little bit and get away and fight a bit later, because there's been a few laps now where he's attempted the overtake, hasn't quite happened. And the point is, every time he looks for that overtake down the main straight, where he's 2-3 close and he doesn't make it, he's not only wasting the opportunity and fighting with Delange,
so
he's looking
close
again
now
into the Casio Triangle.
He was almost alongside, and if he were almost alongside, overlapping the car, now he's so close. He's never been this close before. He's tucked right up in the rear wing. Delange already defending to the inside. Ghost should have the better run round the outside here. He's using DRS, and he's got the move done before the tapping the brakes on the way into turn 1. That is a take for the lead at the start of lap 8.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he continues to not make that move, he's wasting his ERS and losing time. Obviously, this time around he does get it done, which means he can start to try and get away here. Yeah. But I'm not so sure that's going to be very easy.
Well, Delange, of course, our pole sitter. He's got good raw pace in the car. How much is he saving the car for the end of the race, saving the tyres for a longer pit stop? But I was going to play devil's advocate with you for a moment there, JP, because Delange is also interested in the fate of his teammate Livingwall. As much as he wants to win the race and make it a 2-horse race, I'm not sure it is in the best interest of his team to gap away from Livingwall. It's better to keep this top 4 as condensed as possible. Of course, he's got less of a say in that now as he slipped back to P2.
Yeah, obviously the Alfa Romeos, they do talk to each other. We've got a yellow flag. That's Mr. Steen, I think, a little bit slow out with their hairpin. Yeah, obviously the Alfa Romeos do talk to each other. They do talk about their strategies, and at the moment, Delange, being the lead Alfa Romeo, will get the choice for strategy right now and what lap he wants to pit on, as he is technically the lead driver fighting for the Ghost's lead. I'll be interested to see how fast that Alfa Romeo is now with the DRS. He's half a second behind the Alpine. How close can he get? And this will give you a bit of a gauge of just how close he needs to be. I mean, 2.5 tenths. So 2.5, 3/10.
Yep.
As we've seen before, that's the window of opportunity to use the DRS down that main straight.
Certainly on equal tyres at least. Things will be a little bit different later in the race when they're on slightly alternate strategies, or the additional tyre wear from one or other driver comes into play. Speed Queen still in P6, but we've both looked down the tower at the same point, and we're eyeing up Speed Queen, whose tyres now, JP, are going to be in a better place.
Yeah, the laps are counting down, and we're starting to get near that crossover point of the mediums and the hards. I mean, you're probably looking around 12, lap 11, 12, for the mediums to probably be nearly pitting on.
She took a very different line into the hairpin, had much better grip. You could visually see what kind of turn-in power the car had. She's now going to go through Spoon with almost identical situation. Good on the throttle application. Looks like Reshka using a bit of ERS to power out of the corner, but Speed Queen will be closer. She's going to dip within 0.2 of a second, 1.5 tenths as they go into 130R. Speed Queen with all the grip in the world, but can't find the room on the racetrack. She's going to get very, very close going into the Casio Triangle. Can she hold it? 0.3, 0.4 it opens out to under acceleration. I'm not sure she's quite got the jump out of Casio Triangle, but here comes the top speed now. As she gets the DRS, gets the inside line. She's given the inside line here from Reshka, and I think that was a little bit of kindness there from Reshka, repaying the favour that she gave him earlier on. Not fighting the position too much, JP.
Yeah, it's clever from Reshka. He knows he hasn't got the pace of the Red Bull. And right now he's just looking to consolidate at least the top 6 here. He's got 1.5 seconds to Tirac. He doesn't want to lose too much time fighting a losing battle. So it's clever driving from the Alpine. I was just looking at the top 2 going into the first corner, Webbo, and Delange was 0.2 going to the first corner, but he still decided to fill up the mirrors of Ghost's Alpine just to see if he could have a bit of a mistake for Ghost driving, as we say, driving backwards in his mirrors.
Yeah, eyes very much equal split between eyes forward and perhaps in his mirrors there. I think Ghost might be looking to recharge a little bit on the ERS. Stefan has considerably more, as does Livingwall, than the top 2. They are harvesting and preserving that ERS at this stage.
Mr. Steen has spun it at the hairpin. No damage, so he's going to get back going again, but it is another not so kind race so far for the Aston Martin.
Yes, a little like a school kid starting school and having their name mentioned too often in the first week. It does appear you've said Mr. Steen in somewhat solemn tones several times already tonight, JP.
Interesting one to keep an eye on. Obviously Reshka close to Speed Queen, but that's because of DRS. Burmeister should be starting to close in now on Tirac, but he's not exactly closing in at the same rate that Speed Queen was closing in on Reshka. So it'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on, just to see whether that does actually contain any extra pace in it. Because at this point I'd be expecting him to start pulling a couple of tenths at least a lap.
We're at we're over 1/3 distance for the race, and on the medium tyre, Simon Palmer says Delange box now. That would be very early, JP, ahead of schedule, but he needs to do something different maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's too far off the mark though. Let's say 11-12 laps, about 15-ish on the hards I think you can probably do, because the hards do tend to last. I mean, it's going to be interesting, and a lot of people are going to be looking as Mr. Steen once again has spun, this time at Dunlop Curve, and again no damage, so he'll be fine to crack on again. But yeah, Speed Queen is going to become a little bit of a guinea pig to a degree, but not really in a good way for the other drivers to know what's going on, because she's very good at conserving her tyre wear. So how long Mr. Steen has actually retired, and I think he's actually crashed out at Degner 2, so just to rob salt in that wound. That's Reshka in the pits on lap 11.
Very interesting. So Reshka takes the hint there that it's time to pit. The top 4, none of them decided to pit. Now, of course, they've got the option of doing the opposite. box opposite, as we were hearing at the weekend. That chance reduces the amount of times that you pass up the opportunity. Reshka's decided to pit now. Ghost could anticipate that these drivers trying to get the undercut on him and do the same himself. What kind of gap have they got, JP? I think they're going to be stuck coming out in P9 somewhat after Luke Bailey. Would that be a fair assumption?
Well, I'm just going to have a quick look. So Reshka 30 seconds, Speed Queen 6, so you're looking at about a 25 second loss. So you're looking, they're going to come out behind simply.
Yeah.
So around 10th area currently.
Looks like a Ferrari round in the S's. That's presumably Ivan Belov.
Yeah, Ivan's gone round in the Snake. The interesting thing, I think Reshka maybe pulled the pin on that when he saw the notification that Mr. Steen had retired.
Okay.
So potentially,
any pit stops. Delange in. So Delange, the only one of the top 4 who decides to pit now. He makes that call as Stefan now gets the DRS on the back of Ghost. It's Ghost, Stefan and Livingwall. Delange first to pit. Speed Queen getting up into P4 thanks to her hard tyres that are performing better than the mediums right now. And she'll also have the benefit of a couple of laps here, JP, of difference in speed, because the fresh hard tyres are going to be hard to manage and cold, difficult to warm up. And then when she pits, she won't have that same problem. Her mediums will heat up much quicker.
Yeah, the hards will take between, depending on how harsh you are with them and how much risk you want to take, 2 to 4 laps to really get going. And as you can see, Reshka out ahead of ARL, which is good because he was ahead of him before. But yeah, I think Reshka pulled the pin that lap earlier because of Mr. Steen's retirement, potentially on that potential of a safety car.
Yeah.
But overall, he's only a lap earlier compared to those around him, so it's a nice one because he doesn't lose as Ivan Belov has retired.
Voluntary retirement looks like, yeah, indeed. Yeah. Looks like that spin in the S's on the same lap earlier on was enough to discourage him from continuing, but we thank him for his sporting behaviour of voluntarily retiring in the pits and not just parking up. Top 3 going into the Casio Triangle. Who pits now? Ghost in. All of them. They're all going to pit right now and eliminate any difference in time that they have. And a massive accident there for Stefan. And it almost Livingwall having a sympathy problem and hitting the wall too, JP. I think unsighted.
Tirak is now out. Tirak is out. I don't know where.
No, and everyone else coming into the pits because I believe a safety car has been called.
Safety car is out. Yeah, I don't know where Tirak crashed.
No, I couldn't see, unfortunately.
Look at Stefan Ranz's car. He has no front wing.
Have they not changed it in the pit stop?
No, because once you enter the pit lane, it is what it is. And if you hit your front wing in the pit lane, they will not change it. You have to come back in. So that is huge. And the question I have now is, what is Delange looking like? Delange looks like he got away with it, because I thought Delange maybe also hit the wall.
It looks like Speed Queen decided to go for a free pit stop on lap 14 as well. However, Burmeister, Luke Bailey, they did not, and they have foregone the pit lane. They're going to have a cool period on these tyres, JP. What kind of a situation are they going to be in on used hards on the restart, away from drivers on cold, unused hards?
I mean, in theory, if the game physics were to kind of work correctly to a degree, the used hards would actually warm up slightly quicker, because they're what you would call a scrub set of hard tyres now.
Yeah.
And normally what you would do is with a scrub set they would last a little bit longer and heat up a little bit quicker, but I'm not quite sure the game physics work like that, so I suspect it will be just a case of they have less grip, and it's going to be interesting. I'm surprised they didn't take a free pit stop there, because we've seen other drivers mediums last 13 laps.
Yeah, on heavy fuel as well, so they can clearly make the end. It is a surprise, unless they feel like they can use the softs at the end of the race. That's pretty much their only different strategy here. I was having a careful look at Livingwall's car. I don't see any damage. I was riding on board with him. It looked like he was about to hit the wall. No, Livingwall does have a missing front wing, as well as Stefan. So they're both going to have to pit again this lap, I believe, and get that fixed. They will have the safety car will run for another lap to give them that reprieve, but they will of course lose every track position, and the top 2 pit as well. So that has opened up the door for Ghost. He's back on top of this race. The foregoing top 2, Burmeister and Luke Bailey, all pit. As does Burmeister, as does Stefan and Living Wall. Ghost, Delange, Speed Queen, your new top 3, and Speed Queen on the medium tyres, JP, for the restart.
Yeah, Stefan getting a little bit held up. Stefan now, this is the problem we have now for Living Wall and Stefan. They've had no choice but to go onto the soft compound, because you only get one set of mediums, and the problem is they've already used those.
And the hards, yeah. So it's a double punishment for that costly error going into the pits. I don't think that you can really blame Living Wall. Maybe he could have left a bigger gap to Stefan in front, but you can't really predict the driver is going to hit the wall.
Living Wall, I'm pretty certain, hit the same piece of wall. He didn't actually go into the back of Stefan. I think
he was taking avoiding action though, with the accident going on in front. I don't think he would have done the same thing again.
In my opinion, I think both of them hit the brakes late.
Delange off the track, coming just warming the tyres on the way out of Degner 2. Delange playing a risky game there. Certainly rubbed the Armco on the outside at low speed.
Yeah, I think for Living Wall and Stefan, both of them were just hitting the brakes as late as they can to not lose too much on the pit entry.
Yeah.
And the problem is, round the pit lane for Suzuka is not bumpy as such, but it's not exactly smooth. So it's easy, and because it's obviously downhill with a bit of camber, it's easy to lock up the front tyres. I think that's all that's happened there. They've just braked a little late, ended up locking up because they're on the brakes so hard to gain that time. And obviously the pit lane still carries on round to the right, and if you lock up, you haven't really got much turning ability. So, but safety car in this lap, we are about to go racing once again.
Straight away with the hard take on it is Simon Palmer saying it's a Speed Queen's race to lose. She's definitely going to have good grip on these early couple of laps, and should have tyres to the end. However, the hards will be in better shape, so the sooner the better for Speed Queen as they get ready to restart this race coming out of the Casio Triangle. When does Ghost decide to go? I think he's going to wait for the last possible moment. There he goes now, just after the pit lane exit and the DRS line. He goes now, and Speed Queen has got amazing grip coming out of the Casio Triangle, and last corner she's almost alongside. Can she get down into the turn 1? She cannot get the overlap sufficiently. I think she perhaps gave up an opportunity there, JP, to really dive down the inside.
Yeah, although probably the right idea there to back out that move. She wasn't far enough alongside, but she did time the restart well, maybe slightly too well, and she had to maybe back out a little bit to not overtake Delange too early, as Burmeister now gets past Simply. He's on those medium tyres, remember? Yeah. So he's going to look to come through the field. But Speed Queen,
there's a Ferrari round. That smoke spinning on the way out of Degner 2. So it's all going wrong for the drivers here. It's someone's put down some oil on the way out of Degner 2, it seems. Delange lost it under the safety car down there.
Yeah, I don't know whether smoke maybe just damaged his rear wing as well, because as he reversed, I'm pretty certain he rear-ended that Ferrari on the bridge as he tried to get going again. So he's not only got no front wing, he has potentially got rear wing damage, but I'm not quite sure because we don't get that information.
Seems that Ivan Belov in the driver chat is blaming ARL for his accident, calling him, saying he pulled a Latifi on him. So we'll have to see. I guess that's just falling off the circuit. Living Wall, DNF. Living Wall out of the race as they came towards the Casio Triangle. Didn't see it on stream, I apologise, but you can see it now. He has turned the car around on the approach to the corner. Simply 90 appears to have been caught up in that as well. And is that another safety car, JP, or is it just VSC?
We have a virtual at the moment. Interesting that for Living Wall. Yeah, either he's got on the... Luke Bailey's got no front wing as well. Wow. And he came through a lot later, so I don't know where he's gone off. But yeah, Living Wall, I suspect, if he's not been helped round, he has got on the curb and the AstroTurf on the outside 130R, because it's surprising. You might think it's surprising how far down he's gone from 130R, but at that sort of pace, do go quite a long way. Stefan,
and the walls are tight as well. Can almost pinball the car down the track.
Yeah, Stefan has taken the opportunity under the VSC to come in and grab some put on his hard tyres again, because they've only done one lap. So we'd have hoped for a full safety car, because now he's about 27, 28 seconds behind everyone.
Really, really interesting. I did wonder, and we're green flag racing now. Green flag on the circuit. Speed Queen getting a little bit of a gap here to the two in front. She needs to pounce as quickly as possible, but it looks like if anyone's going to make a move, it's likely to be Delange on Ghost. Ghost a little bit tardy away from that VSC, and Delange staying right in his wheel tracks. They go through 130R. The car's bottoming out, and they'll approach that all-important Casio triangle. Important because it's an overtaking opportunity, yes, but doubly so because of the traction zone on the way out and down the start-finish straight. They're looking for DRS in the next couple of laps. In fact, they're giving it right away. So Speed Queen still within DRS range, but she's got Reshka behind, and ARL chasing hard. Delange getting into turn 1 and 2. Very close behind Ghost, but not close enough to have a go. And it's the longer Speed Queen takes to get past these two, the less likely it's going to seem, as the hard tyres will come into their own soon, especially having gone through a heat cycle. So I did wonder, you know, when the stewards gave out praise this week, whether that was a foreboding prediction and we were going to end up with a scrappier race, JP. I think it might just be track specific though.
Yeah, like we say, it's an old school circuit. Mistakes are punished, and they are not punished lightly, as we've seen. I think Speed Queen, to a degree, on that virtual safety car restart, got caught a little bit napping, because I think she'd lost about 2-3 tenths. Obviously, she's gained that back now with the grip of the mediums, but you kind of feel like she should have been there a little bit earlier to be hassling Delange on that restart. So she's had to use up a bit of grip to get back in contention with this. Yeah,
and she's back following Delange now. She needs to get within a quarter of a second, in my estimation, as she approaches Casio Triangle, in order to be in with a shout into turn 1. But Delange's eyes are very much forwards at the moment as well. She uses the apexes neatly through the Casio Triangle. It's got a great run now, JP.
Yeah, I was just watching Burmeister a minute though, but Speed Queen alongside is not going to do it.
Closed out in the braking zone for turn 1. Delange, a little bit of a wheel-to-wheel rub there on the way in. I don't think he knew she was on his outside. He's looking for his braking zone. May not be monitoring those chevrons from within the car accurately enough, but there's a little bit of contact going into turn 1.
Yeah, just about a car's width, I think, so it's hard racing, but fair, I think, ultimately. Speed Queen didn't really warrant the space anyway. She wasn't really alongside. Burmeister up into 5th place. I thought he had a good run out of the Casio Triangle chicane, and he did. He's past ARL. His next target is Reshka, and then he's on to the battle with the top 3. So Burmeister starting to come into his own here, as we've got a Stefan is round at Dunlop curve.
Interesting. Okay, so Stefan round. Luke Bailey overtook Simply 90 very neatly, going into turn 1 moments ago as well. Let's see where Stefan is on the circuit. I think he's recovered quite easily.
Yeah, he's back to dead in 1. I must also say, though, for anyone that's still racing this race, all they have to do is finish and they score points.
Yes, of course. Yes, so points for everybody today. You get points, everybody gets points if you can keep running, but it's not quite so simple. I think if they get within the last couple of laps, they might get a classified finish, but points, really need to get to the flag.
The rules, as I've heard, is you must cross the line on that last lap. If you are legitimately a lap down, you obviously still get your points, but yeah, you must cross the line come the end of the race. If you crash on the last lap, you get nothing.
It's a cruel sport. Speed Queen then 4 tenths, just about half a second behind Delange. Feel like the stinger's going from her attack, and the only thing that stopped her from getting that move done on the previous lap was the fact that Delange had the DRS in front. Now, does Ghost start playing games here and try and keep Delange in a DRS train with the threat behind, or does he decide actually, forget Delange's race, this is all about me, just push as much as possible. Here comes Speed Queen. She might have been within range here into the spoon. There was a moment there Delange looked to be on a slightly different line, and Speed Queen trying to get a good run out of spoon. It's difficult to get the traction coming out of spoon while stuck in the dirty air. It's a very hard traction zone. JP's following another driver there.
Yeah, you're starting to see with Suzuka, there's multiple as smoke around at Dunlop. I'm not going to do that as we're still more speaking because Delange right on the tail of Ghost. You can see this track, there's a few corners here where you can overtake, but you have to be side by side on the entry. If you're not, then you need to pull out and go again because you're just going to cause a crash. Delange, not really a great exit from the Cassitronic, but just enough, and enough of a gap really to keep Speed Queen behind. Yep. Meanwhile, Burmeister still looking at the back of the other Alpine of Reshka right now.
Well, everybody, the Delange and Speed Queen on very similar levels of ERS. Ghost has a lot more, so he's back to his customary ERS saving mode. Now he's in the lead, controlling the pace, not needing to push as hard as the two drivers following him at the moment, who are very much locked in their own battle. And trying to bring themselves in contention for the win. It is on lap 21. It is Ghost from Delange, from Speed Queen. Reshka and Burmeister very close behind now, definitely within range. And then a little bit further back, you've got IRL in P6. Stefan a long way back in 7th. Then Luke Bailey, Simply 90, and Smoke trying to bring this home for points, but we will focus on the battle for the top 3 here. Speed Queen, 0.3 of a second. This is a better opportunity, but she just needs Delange to slip out of DRS, and she can have some say in that, JP, by trying to put Delange offline. If she does that, then she can open up that gap at the front.
Yeah, I think she's also wary though that if she starts doing that, she knows she'll be losing time in Reshka within DRS of herself.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a chess game right now because Speed Queen wants to get past, but at the same point she also doesn't want to lose too much time doing so, and to a degree also wants to extend the gap a little bit to Reshka so that...
she might have words with the stewards as Delange very much picking different lines, not smoothly moving across the circuit. She tries around the outside going into turn 3. There's no way through there, but she is working hard to put Delange off his racing line, unfortunately losing a bit of ground now. And I did feel like Delange was moving a little bit on the edge of the rule book there, JP, on the way into turn 1.
I think he'll be fine. He made the initial line to the inside, and as Speed Queen wasn't alongside, returned to the racing line. In normal rules, that's acceptable because the car is not within striking range of an overtake.
For me, it was just a little bit jerky. It was Speed Queen trying to put the surprise on here, using the ERS on the approach to spoon, and Delange is offline. Speed Queen might have a better run out of spoon 2 here as a result, but of course the DRS will open for Delange just before it opens for Speed Queen down on the approach to 130R. Forgive me, that's absolutely incorrect. They don't have DRS on that approach, but they're trying to get the DRS for the next run down the start-finish straight. And she's just trying to pressure Delange into a mistake, who in turn is doing the same on Ghost.
Yeah, and Speed Queen a lot closer now. The question is, I don't think she's close enough though.
No,
and
we've got
the problem
5 to go now.
Those mediums, whilst they will last technically the 12-13 laps that they need to go, they won't stay fresh forever. But it's clever defending really from Delange, I must admit, because he's only defending when necessary in terms of his line. You can see as much as he can, he's trying to stay on that racing line, but whenever he does have to, he does cover the line off from the attack of Speed Queen. So it's very much like the Rob Huff defending in that sense, only defending when necessary, which is the best way to defend.
Absolutely. don't want to defend fresh air, that's for sure. Reshka right on the bubble of losing DRS to the back of Speed Queen, and that will open up the opportunity for Burmeister. So Burmeister waiting to pounce here. Reshka staying just under that 1 second window. Good to see over 100 comments so far. I think the 100th went to Lift Boot, and we've got Simon Palmer said he got a 5-second penalty for that very type of defence last week. I can't comment, but just stirring the pot slightly, I guess, here. Jim praising Speed Queen's drive so far. I do think that she will rue not making more of that first opportunity she had after the restart. Reshka still within a second, still has DRS to thwart the attentions of Burmeister. It's lap 24 of 27. Ghost, DeLonge, Speed Queen, Reshka, Burmeister, ARL, your top 6, with just the penalty for Simply 90, who, incidentally, JP, has been called out by Living Wall for his driving standards, I presume, after the restart. Which is how things got caught up on the concertina effect in the way into the Casio Triangle on the first restart lap.
Yeah, obviously hard for us to really comment on that, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, Stewards have been a little bit quiet, so they're going to have to earn their paycheck, I think, after this race. But Ghost is still leading with 6/10 to the good, and Reshka has reeled back in a bit of time to Speed Queen to keep his DRS in his battle with Burmeister. So everything, you get the feeling this is a little bit calm right now, ready to ramp up for the last 2 to 3 laps.
And Ghost is absolutely managing. Ghost is absolutely managing this gap, JP. Apologies for cutting across. I just noticed Speed Queen's ERS light flashing. She's down under 10%, whereas DeLonge has in the 20s, Ghost in the 60s. So he is paying a watching brief behind him, monitoring that gap and reserving his ERS for the final 3 laps, which is about to start now. And indeed it does. Reshka still keeping that DRS. No, in fact, he slipped out. Does that open up the opportunity here for Burmeister? Oh, wow.
Reshka just about got the DRS, because remember the detection is just before the Casio Triangle, so he just about, even though he lost the time out of it, he still had the DRS. He just didn't have the slipstream to go with it, but he's going to be under intense pressure now, although you'd like to think those hards should be a little bit nicer than those mediums. But it'll be interesting to see that battle. Meanwhile, the top 3, see, now Speed Queen doesn't have to worry about Reshka and his DRS. She can fully focus now on the 2 ahead of her. I think, obviously, with Speed Queen's sort of tyre wear specialty, shall we say, it's like a perk, isn't it, in a career mode. It'll be interesting to see just how much grip and life she's got left in this race, because I think it's going to be more than what other drivers would be right now.
Again, trying to just stay in one mirror or the other mirror of DeLonge here, going into Spoon 2 using a slightly different line. Unfortunately, it gives up a little bit of traction on the way out of Spoon 2. And if you're right in what you've just said, JP, and Simon's right in the chat that the tyre delta overlap will only happen on the final lap, then I think Speed Queen has a good chance of still having equal or better grip than the hard runners on the final lap. It is just closing out the 25th of 27 laps. We start lap 26, 2 to go then, and now DeLonge dips into the red on the ERS as well. Ghost will start to gap the field, I think, on this lap, or he'll certainly start going for it next lap. We've got a double yellow sectors, but it goes back to green flag now. Nothing too worrying.
Just ran a little bit wide through turn 1. Burmeister gets all out of shape through the snake, snaking the car around in the snake, shall we say. But yeah, I think Reshka just went a little bit wide through turn 1. Stefan gets a 5-second penalty for speeding the pit lane. I've got the feeling Stefan going for fastest lap here because he's guaranteed top 10 finish. He's guaranteed top 7 because he's not going to lose that in the pits. If he takes the fastest lap here on the 27th and final lap, he will keep and get that point. Which is currently sat with Luke Bailey. with a 1:31.949.
Ghost using the ERS. Speed Queen needs him to use it now, so that she has she's the only one with DRS going down this straight. What is Ghost doing? He's not deploying down the backstretch, so Speed Queen desperately needs Ghost to stretch that gap for a final lap shootout. But I don't think it's going to be all her weight. She's going to have to do it, I think, possibly even into the Casio Triangle. Next time round, she is closer than she's been for quite a while, under half a second as she comes out of the final corner. It looks there'll be barely anything between their ERS deployment options. Delange creeps towards the middle of the track. Speed Queen doesn't make an attempt this time. No sign of a move yet from Burmeister either on Reshka, but all eyes on the front here, JP.
Yeah, and Delange, I must say, is driving absolutely brilliantly right now. This is a lot of pressure. He's been put under by Speed Queen for the second half of this race, and he's not really made any mistakes. So he's just got to survive another 5.8 kilometres, less than that now. But you can see the car harvesting, is regenning, or whatever they call it nowadays.
Into the hairpin. Any chance? No, Speed Queen again. Oh, she goes for the inside. She goes for the inside, looking for traction coming out. She'll have the inside line here, but just Delange just gets the required overlap before they approach. Speed Queen looking for another line as Delange goes wide again. Speed Queen has perhaps given up her best run opportunity. She was almost forced into having a go. Maybe that was tactical from Delange. Masterful there if it was. Now the gap opens out to half a second. Dare we dream of a last corner lunge into the Casio Triangle? I'm not sure Speed Queen's quite so silly to try that. It looks like, though, Ghost surviving this race. Started out of position, but Ghost wins yet again. Wins race 6 of 7 in this F1 season, and Delange takes home the second place. Speed Queen keeps it real, keeps it on the podium, and good points for her and the Red Bull team. Reska secures 4th. Burmeister in 5th, a hard-fought 5th place for Burt, with faultless in the top 5 as far as I'm concerned. ARL perhaps less so, but brings home the car in P6. Good points for his championship. Let's check out, did anybody... Ghost even got the fastest lap on the final lap. Let's see what Stefan manages to do, because he's all the way back in 7th, hasn't crossed the line yet. He is... Someone's just commenting on YouTube just as I get my second sector time for Stefan, so I can't quite see, but yeah, quite
1.1
a...
Stefan's on for this, because he's 1.1 up on his previous best time, putting him on a 32.1.
There it is.
It's at 30.7. That's a great time. I mean, granted, he's on the softs and he had pretty much full battery charge available, but that's a fantastic time in the race. Simply comes home for 8th, but will be 9th in the end due to post-race penalties.
Absolutely, wow. That was a very tense race with a little bit of craziness in the middle, JP, but a deserving podium. But Burmeister gets given driver of the day for places gained. Tough to argue with that, but I think Ghost going from 4th to 1st and controlling the race to such a degree might be within a shout of a possible driver of the day award.
Yeah, I mean, Delange done most of all the drivers there done well in terms of the battles, especially at the end there. Obviously, Ghost again proving that he is right. You have to say that this is basically the halfway point of the championship. Almost, we've got 8 races to go. We've got a week break next week, and you have to say he's starting to put a hand on that title already. He's showing that he's not easy quick in qualifying. He can start off. He can start not on pole position, get through the pack, and still win races and take all the pressure that goes with it.
Yeah, I'm controlling the race as well. Very, very impressive stuff from Ghost, who takes home the win. But JP, do me a favour and go through the order for us. I already read it out mostly on the game screen.
So your provisional results for the Japanese Grand Prix. Ghost once again. It's 5 in a row for Ghost. Delange 2nd, Speed Queen 3rd, Reshka 4th, Burmeister 5th, ARL 6th, Stefan in 7th, Luke Bailey 8th, Simply in 9th, Smoke the last classified finisher in 10th, Livingwall, Tarak, Ivan and Mr. Steen, or falling foul of the classical circuit and retiring from the race tonight.
Okay.
Stefan,
very,
4 stops and still 7th.
Fastest lap for Stefan, got it in the end. Simon's asking me to answer my fans. I'm sorry, Simon, I've missed what you've asked me. You'll have to ask me again if you want me to answer, but also make sure that you pop a question in for our podium. Hopefully we will get to speak to them. Speed Queen can be a little bit shy. I think I noticed she had been added to the commentary booth. I don't know if you actually managed to get an interview out of her beforehand, JP.
No, unfortunately not at Singapore. We did try.
I'm sure. I've only ever managed one interview with Speed Queen, but I noticed Delange was coming. I can see Ghost on his way as well. We'll see if Speed Queen makes it. But in the meantime, we will speak to Ghost. I know he knows his way around the setting menu for what to do with sound settings and everything. So Ghost, tremendous stuff there. You managed to pull that one out from 4th on the grid. A late surge in qualifying got you that 4th place, and then it looked like, to me at least, it looked like you were controlling that last third of the race.
Qualifying, well, I was worried for a long time. I just kept spinning over and over again in Sector 1. So that last lap, I just made sure to keep it on track in Sector 1 and then pushed for the rest of the lap. I was happy that I ended up on the second row and then had a good start. And then from there, it was just keeping the pressure on and keeping my own car on the track as always as well. I didn't feel in control, put it that way. Not until the last couple laps where I started to pull away. But I think that was just because Delang had Speed Queen behind him and was just draining his ERS to keep her behind. And I just pushed all of mine in on the last lap. But yeah, it was tough. I definitely had to work hard again for that one. Dylang's pace was amazing all race, and after qualifying, I didn't think that I'd be that I'd have the pace to be sort of controlling the race, but I think it just turned out well for me and for Speed Queen with the safety car, because it just meant that Dylan had to defend from her. So he couldn't focus enough on getting past me. So yeah, it was a tough race, but I'm happy to come away with the win.
Oh, I bet you are, absolutely. JP, any questions for our now 5 on the bounce winner?
Well, I mean, what more to say goes? I mean, we've been here now, 7 times? 6 for wins, 1 for second? I mean, the thought pattern now has got to be, I mean, this consistency. How are you going to basically, because we've got the week break coming up, how are you going to make sure that this consistency keeps going on? Because whilst you do have a big point advantage in the championship, I mean, we've seen before, it only takes 2-3 bad races and you're right back in a scrap again. So, I mean, where are you looking now with the second half of the season looming starting in a couple of weeks? How are you going to make sure this consistency and dealing with this constant pressure behind you for these race wins? How are you going to keep managing this? Because it's a tough ask.
Yeah, Reshka's a big help in the party, because he keeps me. He makes sure I don't get too agitated and keeps me grounded in the race. And obviously today he was brilliant. He was properly on the pace with the top, and he was. I mean, one incident or one mistake from any of us three, and he'd have been on the podium. So he was great today, and I think he's a big help for me keeping calm like that and keeping confident. So yeah, but I think other than that, it's just about keeping my head in the zone on the track and not thinking too much about what's going on in the points or any of that. Just in the race, it's all about just win today or just get the best result I can today, and then championship takes a secondary place in my mind. I think that's the key.
Well, it's a luxury, perhaps, to be thinking, batting off those questions at this point in the season. But absolutely, take care of the races, and the championship will take care of itself. Is fine and dandy until you're on the cusp, and I think then the pressure starts to get a little bit more intense. But good luck with it, and hats off once again. I must give some airtime to Delange. I hope you'll forgive us for moving on, Ghost, but congratulations on another win. Delange, you were working hard out there tonight. Looked like you were in a chance of getting a win, but ultimately defending from Speed Queen looked to be the undoing of a potential launch for a win towards the end of the race, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, congrats to Ghost. His pace has been phenomenal whole season, and again today, it's been brilliant. But yeah, I think my own pace was good today. It's just the safety car brought Speed Queen right behind me on new mediums.
Right.
Well, that was really tough, so I need to use my ERS to defend from her instead of attacking Ghost. I think maybe if I had some room behind me, maybe we could have battled for the win. I think I had the pace, but yeah, I needed to defend. So, but overall, I'm happy.
Oh, good. Glad to hear a happy driver in second place. Sometimes it can be the case that we only ever speak to one happy driver. But well done on your race, JP. Anything for Delange here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've had a bit of a mixed bag this season in terms of your results. Obviously, the halfway season questions, because obviously we have the week break next week unless you're in realistic performance. You've had a bit of a mixed bag so far this season, Delange. You've had a couple of podiums. Obviously, this is your third one this season, and obviously your teammate Livingwall has been a little bit unlucky in terms of his own results and retirements. When you started off so strong, I mean, is the week break now just about maybe getting you do use it for a little bit of extra practice, just to make sure you're prepared for the coming next 2-3 rounds, or do you just go into a reset mind sort of thing and almost go, it would almost be like as a new championship style thing?
Nah, I'm going to practice as I usually are, and I think my season so far has been I had some strong results, and of course Imola I had the DNF, and Singapore I had the safety car that didn't play out in my way. Otherwise, that could have been a good result as well. So I think overall the pace is definitely there. It's just keeping it on track, basically.
So a break week just means double practice.
Double practice it is, my friend.
Good stuff. Well, Ghost will be listening in and have to apply double or triple practice in response, I'm sure. But JP, a cracking race, full of intrigue, lots of tense moments, and a couple of crazy pit lane incidents that I think we'll be watching back to try and make sense of. Between certainly we had Stefan and Livingwall both having issues in the pits. Any lasting thoughts or further recommendations for driver of the day from you, JP?
Well, I mean, driver of the day, you could be anyone really. It could be Speed Queen, it could be Ghost. I think all of them deserve a very good compliment for the driving today, because the battles have been so close on such a tight circuit, and to not have any of those top six spin or make contact really in these battles at the end of the race is fantastic to watch. I mean, the big thing now is obviously we have our season break, and it's going to be all about how do the drivers come back at the start of next season? Are they relaxed? Are they stressed? Are they well practiced? All these things. Those first two races could be quite key to see whether someone's come back napping or not.
Absolutely. Well, we will obviously take a break. There's plenty of racing still to come, though, this week on Invictus Racing League. Don't forget F2 tomorrow, F3 on Wednesday, when a certain co-commentator here will be featuring heavily, I'm sure. We've got a realistic performance and PC leagues on Thursday as well. Don't forget to subscribe, to follow us on socials at InvictusRL and at WebORed5 if you want to. But from our podium, the top two on the podium at least, Ghost from Delange, very familiar drivers on the podium tonight from JP and everybody involved in PS F1 here at Invictus Racing League. We will all catch you on the next race day.